Whatever place it is you're tuned on to the Life Signatures Radio, if this is your first time to listen to this podcast, it is a daily show that is focused on the subjects of purpose, productivity, and resilience, a self-hosted show where we discuss those things. We teach, we motivate, we instruct, we inspire. If you're looking for a virtual incubator for those three things that I've mentioned, purpose, productivity, and resilience, you found it on these episodes or on this podcast. Right now, we are in the middle of a series we started about 2 weeks ago. We started talking about the personal blockades. What is a blockade? It is something that is as a result of us accepting something as if it's a fact, even though it is not, and therefore we create limits and we stand on our own way of succeeding. That is what a blockade is. And we'll be looking at the different types of blockades. The first one we talked about was the blockade of the mind. But the second one we are talking about is a spiritual blockade. We've already started discussing how we can handle that. Today we're going to go deeper. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Life Signatures podcast with Lawrence Namale. Lawrence is a life coach, author, and keynote speaker who loves to tackle different topics on purpose, productivity, and resilience. His mission in life is to awaken all your boundless possibilities available in you. Life Signatures podcast is dedicated to bring to reality every single person who knows that deep down in their gut, there's got to be more to life than this. And now, here is your host, Lawrence Namale.
The formation of a spiritual blockade comes from the fact that we as a human race are spirit. We are not these physical bodies that you see. I talked about Neil deGrasse Tyson the other day when he was saying that if he dies or when he does die, he wants to be buried. And once he's buried, the microbes and the worms take care of his body, and that's the end of the day. But we are contesting and we're saying that cannot be it. I mean, it cannot be that we are created and we go through this life. What's the point? What's the point of going back to the grave or to the soil and you've forgotten? I mean, why would you have that beautiful blood circulatory system while you have that strong, intricate nervous system, and your eye, the lenses of your eye themselves are just a wonder, just for you to die and be wasted, and that's the end of that's the end of everything? No, I don't think so. I do think that we are spirit and we precede our physical appearance on the face of the earth, and we're going to exceed our physical appearance on the face of the earth. Okay, that's not factual. I cannot justify that and so on. Neither can you justify that when you die, that's the end of the day. You can't. All right, cool. So now that we have that out of the way, it is possible, given the fact or given the idea that we are spirit, it's possible that in our psyche, in our spirit, there can be located some impediments, some limitations, some blockades to our growth. And we started talking about how we can be able to deal with this, how we can be able to handle them. In the past 3 episodes or so, we talked about if you lack purpose, you will inevitably have a blockade. And you need to deal with that blockade by finding your purpose. And we said in the second point that if you have a diminished or a dormant sense of self-worth, automatically it means that there is a blockade in that you cannot do things because you think you don't deserve it, you can't do them. Your psyche is saying, your self-worth is saying those things. And there is no way you can exceed the limitations that have been placed upon you by your worth or your self-worth. If you think you don't deserve, you will not attempt. And you feel justified not to even attempt. That is what a blockade is. It's a spiritual blockade. You cannot touch it, you cannot see it, but it is there. And yesterday we talked about lack of curiosity. The way we approached this yesterday was from the angle that if we are not, if we just accepting everything that is given unto us without question, without asking, wait a minute, we are basically accepting culture. And we talked about culture very many episodes back. You're accepting the status quo. You're accepting that which is. But spirit doesn't operate in that which is. Spirit operates in that which has not been or has not become. And you find that which has not become by questioning that which is. So if status quo tells you that you're black people can do nothing, you say, wait a minute, why is that? I mean, you question, you have curiosity that goes beyond what you see and beyond what you experience. Today, let us talk about one more aspect. This is very powerful. That is one of the things that can cause a spiritual blockade in your life. You know what that is? It is when there is no personal conviction about life. What am I talking about? I'm talking about living your life outside of survival, outside of chasing after eating 3 square meals, outside of just paying the bills and sleeping. That there is something that it's like you are a mission-oriented individual. If you're not a mission-oriented individual, then what I just described becomes your life, and that in itself, you cannot convince me otherwise, in itself, that is a blockade. What am I talking about? I'm saying that if all I am living for in my life is so that I can be able to pay the next bill and eat the next meal, that's a blockade. Because life is consistent of more than eating and drinking and putting on clothes. It is consistent of, Jesus Christ said, there is much more to life than the abundance of things. Life is consisted of more than the abundance of things. And if I'm looking at my life, and the abundance of things is the only thing that I am existing for, then it means, in my opinion, I am lacking conviction for the existence of my life. And this is way beyond purpose, by the way. This is like a mission. Purpose is why I'm here. But a mission is a heartfelt agenda. Right now, agenda that if this agenda, like now, if you look at a guy called Elon Musk, what is his agenda? I've been reading his book, his biography by Walter Isaacson. This guy started having a conviction about Mars and the planets and space when he was still in South Africa, before he could move to the developed world. That is a conviction right there. It's a huge point. See, the worst thing about life that you will see is a human. And you remember, all humans are spirit. Who has the lack of a personal spiritual conviction about life? That is the worst thing you will see. And I know you might not recognize it as the worst thing, but in due course, normally they interview people who are coming to the end of their lives, and they're asking them, what would you have done better? The very things that they regret, it is about this thing I'm talking about, a personal conviction to life. It could be conviction that my family is important than any other thing. It could be conviction that my raising this startup is important than any other thing. And therefore, all these other things become the secondary agenda to your existence. But the primary agenda is your conviction. People try as much as possible to substitute the much needed spirituality in our life with intellectualism. I talked about one of these things in my podcast way ago when we were talking about, I believe we were talking about personal glory. We talked about the liberal life these days. I mean the liberal agenda. The liberal agenda, the next word you can give it, the synonym for liberal agenda, in my opinion, is selfishness. Because everything that the liberal champions is not to benefit someone else. It is to benefit themselves. Okay? It is for themselves. And listen to this. Not that they are going to get it easily. They are going to get it at the inconvenience of other people. In other words, you have to, if I don't call you a man and you are a woman, I'm misgendering you, something of that nature, and therefore, guess what? That is the kind of intellectualism that we are looking at in this life today. We have replaced conviction with intellectualism. We've replaced conviction on a life or on a mission with this selfishness. Others delve into religiosity. We're going to talk about religiosity in the episode tomorrow. Those ones who are not doing intellectualism and liberalism and selfishness, they go into religiosity. But both ways, the worst of all, the worst that you can be able to see, and what you can be able to do is not to have your own personal conviction about life. That's the worst thing. And I know the problem, again, I have covered this in very many series in these episodes. The problem is that this is not the mainstay of our school systems. The mainstay of our parenting. We're not raising people with conviction about life. We are raising people who can chase after a job and pay bills and eat 3 square meals and build a house somewhere and retire in old age. Lack of conviction, complete lack of conviction. The greatest among us, my friends, the greatest among us are people who have conviction over something. You cannot build Apple if you don't have conviction. You cannot build IBM if you don't have conviction. You cannot build what Dangote Aliko is doing in Nigeria if you don't have conviction. You cannot do what Tony Elumelu is doing in Nigeria if you do not have conviction. You cannot lead and be a leader if you do not have conviction. A lack of conviction in my own personal life is a blockade in and of itself. It is telling me I am sentenced to a life of eating hand to mouth, basically. And I don't care. Maybe you have, I don't know how you got it, but maybe you have enough money to last you the rest of the year. And you're just living hand to mouth. You're just living like that. I mean, someone might not say you're living hand to mouth, but as long as you do not have conviction, it is my technical observation that that's a hand to mouth living. You see, we need to have our own conviction. We need to have it. We ought to have our own personal conviction about the meaning of life, the essence of our existence, and the greater good for humanity. I am here so that humanity can experience much more glory because I existed, because I impacted, because I contributed. And that should be a conviction. So the conviction should be my own. It's not a group think. It's not a conviction of the community. Of course, there's these things we have about conviction of the community. That for us in this region, we believe in XYZ. That should never trump the personal conviction. Your personal conviction should be stronger than a collective conviction. Because invariably, a collective can be wrong. And also, even if a collective is not wrong, it doesn't recognize the individuality and the uniqueness of a person, and we have power in our uniqueness. This conviction should be your own. It should be my own. If I don't have it, chances are that a spiritual blockade could be in operation in my life as we speak. Tomorrow we go deeper. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Life Signatures Radio. If you enjoyed today's show, subscribe to Life Signatures Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or visit our website at lifesignatures.libsyn.com. Life Signatures Radio, fresh, clean, and inspiring.